our minds very often mislead us. I would say anytime we're sure of something, that is 100% that we're not resourceful. If you just change the way you think about situations, that whole issue of grit and perseverance can kind of melt away.
Hey folks, I'm Neil Twa from Voltage, and welcome to the podcast where we only take initials because we don't have time to take names. So today we have MW joining us, or we'll call you Mitch. How about that? We won't use your
Either one.
All right, we're going to talk about mind shifting today, the resourcefulness, resilience, and collaboration effort that allows that to occur between your life and business. So if you're trying to balance things, if you're trying to work out things in your mind, if you're trying to deal with personal or professional issues, you're going to want to chip in today. And by chip in, I mean like, comment, and share. Always is encouraged to subscribe if you like these things. Help us support this and the guests that come on to talk with us today. So Mitch, how is it in New Jersey today? How's life in the East Coast?
So the East Coast today is hot. For us, It's about 95 degrees.
That's warm.
For me personally, things are great because, our kids are adults, but both our kids are here and our daughter brought her son.
Oh, fun.
We have a full house.
Oh, good.
This is great.
So what's it like being a grandpa then? Is it better than being a dad?
I love being dad, and I continued it for 12 extra years by having exchange students.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Let's talk about that.
But eventually my wife says, no more. So I figured I could have maybe 4 or 5 more. And then eventually she says, if you don't resign right now, we are never having another guest in the house. So I had to resign as a volunteer. But having exchange students is fantastic. I mean, you learn how to think differently because they're coming from different cultures, they're different people, they're used to different families. And it's kind of, you're trying to figure out, is it because the country is different? Is it because they're different? Is it because their family's different? And you learn how to adjust to so many different ways of communicating and talking. I loved it.
That's amazing.
Recommend it.
I don't have foreign exchange students. We do support 3 children around the world that we consider part of our extended family and get to write them.
Wow. Where are they?
Their lives. 2 in Ecuador and 1 in Zambia.
Wow. And how do you get involved with that?
Yeah, through Children's International. Yeah, so we've been involved with that and supporting that. It's one of the rare charities that donates almost everything they make to their mission. And so we did some diligence and discovered that was the way to do it. So
wow, that's wonderful.
Hopefully get them through their childhood education and maybe get to meet them as adults one day.
That'd be great. That is
would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely good. And you had an opportunity to stay in touch with all the people that came through your...
Right. Actually, so last January, we flew to Thailand we have 2 Thai sons. One of our Thai sons was getting married. So we flew to Thailand for the weekend. I'm not sure I would fly to Thailand for a weekend again, but...
It's a lot of travel for such a short time.
But it was so cool. And everybody was so honored to see us. And they went out of their way. And then 2 weeks ago, my wife and I were going on a bike trip, we're outside of New York City, but we decided we'd take a 2-day bike trip around Long Island, visiting wineries. And so my wife texted our daughter from Costa Rica, who's now a physician, and said, we're going to be bicycling in Long Island. Would you like to join us? And she says, yes. So a week later, she flew up. We got in the car. We went out to Long Island. And we did 50, 60 miles a day, going to about 5 or 6 wineries a day, and had a great time.
Well, I misspoke. It's actually Guatemala, not Ecuador. I don't know why.
Okay.
They're very different locations.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yes. I got to get that right. I had looked at the sheet over here and I'm like, I see where it's at. That's cool, man. And how did you get started into this? And is that part of your journey, part of our conversation today about?
Well, so I was an exchange student when I was in high school. I went with AFS and I was really lucky. Back then, first of all, it was very competitive. So there were 16 people who applied for 2 spots to be an exchange student with AFS, 15 girls and me. And I was the first boy in 3 years. So I was pretty much guaranteed. So I looked into that and I said I wanted to go to a Spanish speaking country because I wanted to learn Spanish better. And they sent me to Bolivia. And at the time, I knew Bolivia was in Latin America, but I really didn't know much beyond that. But it's a very poor country. And when I went, I had this incredible experience. I got to tour the entire country. I spent a week on a ranch, learned how to ride horses, learned how to herd cattle.
Fun.
I was absolutely determined I was going to learn Spanish. So every day I would write down 10 words and I would use them throughout the day. And by the end of the 10 weeks that I was there, I really was fluent. I was dreaming in Spanish. And I just remember walking down the street with some Bolivian friends, and this American comes up to us and asks, you know how to get to, and I just looked at around and I said, lo siento, pero yo no hablo inglés. And I just walked away. I'm sorry, but I
You
don't
did
speak
better than I could have done. That's amazing.
So that was great. And then, we had au pairs when we first had kids. And one summer, my wife saw an ad that they needed host families for exchange students. She talked to our son who was going into high school, and he said, okay. And that's how we ended up with our first student from Thailand.
Okay.
And there's just so many things that are interesting. The Thai culture is that you never make another person wrong. Okay. So you find a way to find some common agreement or to say something so that the other person doesn't feel like you're disagreeing with them. Well, my son is very argumentative. He would argue with a stop sign. So you get these two kids, one of them was absolutely determined never to get into an argument, and the other one who lives for arguments. And in the morning, it's like when the boy from Thailand would come in and say, good morning. And my son would say, well, what's so good about it? And Wynn would say, well, some people might think it's a good day. Some people might not. My son would say, well, that's really wishy-washy. Like, can't you make up your mind? And that proceeded for a couple of weeks. And then
Did you get that from you, or is that from your, where'd you get that argument from?
My wife is around, so I'm not going to
okay. Obviously.
But no, he's his own person. But it was just interesting. And then after 2 weeks, it became a joke with them, and they just kept it up for the year. And and they're still friends. This was in 2001, so this is 25 years ago.
That's amazing.
We learned a lot from him. When one morning we woke up and there were ants in the kitchen, and I started killing them. And he says, "You're killing the ants?" It's like, well, yeah, they don't belong in the house. He says, "Oh, we regard them as guests."
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Apparently we have a very different viewpoint, because I'm with the old kill the ants.
Yeah, right. Get rid of it. So we've had, two from Thailand, one from Malaysia, one from Pakistan, different, Argentina, Peru, Costa Rica, Italy, France, Austria,
all over the place.
Right. All over the place.
That's amazing. And I bet the different cultures and languages and things you've got to learn really help you. It sounds like even understand the differences between the way your children or your mindset works about things, ants in the house versus not. And Taiwanese, is that, this mind shifting concept we talked about a few minutes ago, is that how some of this has come to fruition?
I think it probably has. I think, it's hard to say whether mind shifting absolutely came first or this came first, but there's so many of the things that I've learned from studying how our brains work and how to make our brains work more effectively that, corroborate the information I've gotten from being an exchange host is, for example, the more different styles of communication that we're exposed to, the better we are at reacting to a wider variety of situations. And so having this experience with the different exchange students has really prepared me to look at somebody and to understand, something, they're not looking at me directly, but that's not a sign necessarily that they're not looking at me. It could be culture. Okay. Or, in some cultures is like you're deliberately answering somebody based on what that they want to hear. So somebody asks you, can you will you do this tomorrow? That they want to hear yes. So whether or not you can do it tomorrow, you say yes. Now in that culture, that's not lying, because there's other body movements that you make that indicate, that you're not really going to get it done by tomorrow. But an American hears that, and it's like the next day when it's not done, it's like, well, you lied.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry that you feel that way.
Right.
When do you need it done? Well, now I need it really done by tomorrow. Okay, I'll do it done by tomorrow. Well, it's not getting done by tomorrow. You knew their body language. You'd understand it's not going to get done by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess, go ahead.
Well, so the three things that back into this concept, right?
Right.
You have three particular topics you chose, I'm sure, for the reasons. Let's break each of them down for a second. We talked about resourcefulness.
Yep.
As the first one, we talked about resilience as the second one, and collaboration, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So each of
Yeah.
those is kind of shift. Is there an angle to which one goes first, or for
Well,
what
so
reason?
you could actually learn about any one of them first, and there's three different courses, so you could take them really in any sequence.
Okay.
There will be three books. The resourcefulness book came out first. The resourcefulness course actually came out first. So I'm going to just start with resourcefulness, because resourcefulness, in the way I look at it, is the way you can tap into the most resourceful parts of your mind. And that kind of starts off with the fact that our minds very often mislead us. And a lot of that is due to, evolution, that our brains evolved first in order to survive. So those parts of the brain started evolving like 500 million years ago. And they react really quickly to very little information in order to do something to keep the organism safe. And we can't tell the difference, despite all this kind of evolution. We can't tell the difference between something that just, doesn't really feel right
Yeah.
or something that's threatening us. And so we have the exact same reaction to both. It's like fight, flight, or freeze. And those reactions basically stop us from accessing the resourceful parts of our brain. We actually, those parts, those survival parts of the brain, they have five different ways of reacting to things. So I mentioned fight, flight, and freeze, but also the things that we already know how to do that we can do without thinking about them. So you call them fluencies, or you can call them habits. And as human beings, we have this tremendous drive to fit in with other people. And so copying, learning, belonging, mimicking is really the fifth different thing. And so those survival parts of the brain, in 2/100ths of a second that we're exposed to a situation, they start coming up with, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. Is this a threat? And in less than a second, they probably come up with whatever it is that we should do.
Yeah.
But the parts of the brain that make us different from all the other animals is this prefrontal cortex, which only started evolving in mammals and most evolved in human beings. But that part of the brain doesn't wake up for 2 to 3 seconds from the stimulus.
Hmm.
So you can just picture, we get involved with these situations and, immediately we know what we're going to do, or we know we can't do it, or we're angry at somebody. And then the prefrontal cortex wakes up, which is critical thinking and innovation and executive function and emotional regulation. And since we've already made the decision, it says, oh, okay, the decision is made. Let me come up with a reason. So, probably 95% of the time that we come up with a reason of why we're going to do something or why we're doing something, it's because our prefrontal cortex has figured out, oh, you've already decided what to do, so this must be the reasons, not because we thought about it first.
Yeah.
But with resourcefulness, you can use, when you're capable of understanding, oh my gosh, this is my survival brain sure of something, or this is my survival brain that has made this decision. Your prefrontal cortex would say, well, wait a minute, something that may be the best thing, but you have to be conscious of that. And even when you're conscious of that, then there's three ways of becoming resourceful. The first is to, sometimes just by being aware, it's like, oh my God, that's survival brain. I don't have to do it that way. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. Second way is positive self-talk. Like, well, what do I really want here? What do I want to accomplish? And the third way is that when we're in really fight and flight, is first we have to calm down that limbic or that survival brain before we can be resourceful. And you can do that through things like meditation or mindfulness or taking a walk or listening to music, whatever. Each one of us has different things that we could do to tone that part of the brain down. And so we have to tone that down and stop the release of the fear hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, before we can access our resourceful parts of the brain. And then that actually also applies to when we're dealing with other people. Because if we're talking to somebody else and they're in their survival brain, we can't
Mm-hmm.
convince them of anything until
Mm-hmm.
they've quieted down their brain. We can't do it for them, but we can help them. We can say, gee, something, let's talk about baseball, or let's listen to some music first, or let's just take, time out for a couple of minutes, and we'll come back to this in 5 minutes when we're both calmer. So that, that's the resourcefulness part, is us being able to access our own resourceful parts of the brain. And the first book, which is mind shifting, stop your brain from sabotaging your happiness and success. That's based on resourcefulness as well. And I mostly teach teachers, but the courses are also, there's also a course on resourcefulness. You have questions on that, or should I go on to resilience? Or
No, that's great. I get it. I mean, the idea of resourcefulness, I think it seems to some of us is inherently natural as a byproduct of our personality types. And for others, I think it's harder to comprehend what resourceful means to them or to a process or to their job or to their business or to things they're trying to accomplish or things they want to do. Is that a fair way to say that?
I think you hit it, because a lot of us, we think of ourselves as resourceful.
Yeah.
And yet I would say anytime we're sure of something, that is 100% that we're not resourceful.
When you've overly confident that you nailed it out of the park.
That you're confident, you know exactly what to do, or you're confident that you can't do something, or you're confident that somebody else is wrong and that you're right, that you're judging, this is bad, this is good. Anytime we're in that type of thought process, if we can kind of step back and say, well, wait a minute, I'm sure this person is wrong, that probably means it's a survival reaction to what they're saying.
An introspection.
Maybe I could try to talk to them and figure out the 10% that they're right. You don't have to think that they're right 100%, but it's like, well, maybe there's something that I'm missing. Maybe I could ask them some questions first. So
some critical thinking involved in it. Yeah. I think I read a thing the other day, and you may have seen this too, something about more than 50% of people don't have an internal monologue. So they don't have the capability. Did you read that too?
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's fascinating.
I haven't read it in a couple, but yes. Right.
Okay. Is this something you can do? Is it something, I mean, can you hear your own voice in your head? Can you hear your own?
I talk to myself all the time. And actually, I think actually most people really do, but they don't think of it as an internal monologue. They think of it as truth.
Interesting. So there's just an echo, sort of an echo chamber comes to mind.
Exactly. It's
like a reinforcement of worldviews or thought process. Well, I did right. Well, yeah, you did okay because you did all these things. And yeah, you're right. I did that. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you kind of hear yourself almost reaffirming.
Yep. With me,
you think or do without having any critical, hey, what about this? Or maybe did you do that? Or should you stop and think about it this way? Or, did you actually complete it? Were you really getting done what you said you're going to get done, or honoring the agreement or verbal agreement you said you were going to do? And, there's some critical thinking, I think, comes to phrases. And I have 4 daughters, as maybe I mentioned to you. So these are one of the things I look at them and try to instill in at least 1 or 2 of them. I know it doesn't seem to be a natural trait
in any of us. Well, it's both natural and, we all have it at times, and we all don't even think at times because we're just reacting to situations.
Sure.
And to have the ability to be self-aware is like a superpower.
It seems to be becoming more and more like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Because as I watch things and go to the internet and listen to videos and watch other people talk and stuff, I'm just like, are you sure that you should have put that on the internet?
You wrote recently, you had the article like when to push, when to pivot. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you think about a business owner that's thinking, I'm going to do this, and this is the right way to do something. And that would be more like your survival brain being sure what you're going to do. But what you suggested was that, something you may be sure of, it, but why don't you start off small so you can get some feedback and figure out to do next? You said, start with a small batch of products and get a 6 to 8 week test and use that. And, if you can come, you can come to 3 different outcomes. Okay. If it turns out that you get a decent click-through rate, that you're selling 2 or 3 units a day with minimal advertising. Okay. Then go ahead and scale it. If it's not, then you could say, well, what do I have to do to improve it again? Okay. But that requires you to be accessing your prefrontal cortex to use that information. Or similarly, you could say, something, I don't think that it's the way I'm presenting it. I don't think that I'm meeting a market need. I'm going to cut this and I'm going to move on. And so those are all, critical thinking, creative thinking, sage.
Overcoming difficulties.
Right.
Literally. The willingness and resourcefulness of overcoming difficulties. That's by definition. Yeah, no, that's very, very good input. Yeah. How does that tie to collaboration?
Okay. Well, I'm going to I can move to collaboration. I was
whichever order you want to go.
Okay.
In. Absolutely.
So with resilience, it's really, how do we deal with situations where they don't turn out the way we expected?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And people think of it as like grit, like you force yourself to overcome them. But actually, if you just change the way you think about situations, that whole issue of grit and perseverance can kind of melt away. Because we naturally think of situations where there's going to be one right answer, and we either have it or we're going to find it. And once we have it, then we're just going to do it. The problem is going to go away, or we're going to take advantage of the opportunity. And if anybody disagrees with us, they're wrong. And there are situations like that, like if you're thirsty and you have a glass of water in front of you, you take a drink. But most things in business and most things in life aren't that simple. There's a large number of situations where you need more information, where you might need some expertise, you might need some analysis. And most of the situations like that, there's no one way that's going to work. There's probably 5 ways or 10 ways or 15 ways. If you want to succeed selling on Amazon, there's probably 1,000 different products that you could offer and be successful. And there's for each one of them, there's probably 5 or 6 different ways of going about doing that. And so with those complicated situations, there are things that are going to work, but you have to do the analysis. You have to get the data and still, try them out and see what's going to happen. And then there's so many situations where I would call those complex, where nobody knows what's going to work.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of marketing, almost everything that we do with another person, you with your daughters, or your daughters dealing with you, they never know when you're going to clamp
Speaking
down,
of difficulties,
right? Right. Okay.
dealing with dad.
Yeah. So in those complex situations, since we don't know what's going to work, the tendency to find an expert to tell us what to do is probably the absolute worst thing that we can do. Because an expert is somebody who has a way of going about something, and everything is, every problem is going to be a nail and they're a hammer. Whereas in a complex situation, we don't know what's going to happen. So your idea of, doing a small test and do a 6 to 8 week test with limited marketing and not committing to, a ton of products, that's preparing for something that's complex, so that you're looking at it, you're trying to figure out what can I try that's going to give me the information so that I can try something else and eventually succeed. And the methodology that I use more than anything else in order to get that done is something that comes out of the military called OODA, OODA, which comes from an Air Force pilot named John Boyd, but OODA stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And so you're always, when you go into something, you're observing, like, what's going on and what do I want to do? And then the orienting process is, how am I going to figure out some things that I could possibly try? And if I try them, what do I think is going to happen? Then decide is choosing one of those things, and then act, but you're acting in a way so that you can observe it, so that you can then orient and come up with the next bunch of things that you're going to be doing. And if you're prepared that you're going to be trying something for the purpose of getting information versus trying something expecting it to succeed, you don't have to worry about the grit. You think about, climbing a mountain, and you take your first step and you're not at the top of the mountain, you're not going to give up, because you have, 1,000 steps or 100 steps that you have to do. Well, if you're going to be trying things 5, 10, 15 different times, then it's not a matter of saying, darn it, something that failed, but I'm tough, I'm going to do it anyhow. It's like, no. I tried something, I got some information. Now I can figure out what next to try, and I can try that. So that's really about resilience, is being prepared for different types of situations, solving them in different ways, and looking for information to come back so that you can constantly improve and develop other resources.
Well, I mean, resilience, yeah, it's the other aspect of quickly overcoming difficulties, but doing it in such a way where you create positivity and outcome from that, as opposed to seeing it as a wall or a stopping block that keeps you from moving forward, right? Resilience is a trait by which we look at our best builders, our best people, or the best outcome possible. We're typically those who have already had a pattern of resilient behavior in their life prior to them coming to work with us, even if they have no e-commerce experience or have never built a business. It's the conversation, it's the aspect, it's where have you had difficulties, what challenges have you had, and then listen to them talk about how they overcame it or what they didn't do. Or do you hear victim tonality in their words, or do you hear empowerment in the way they're doing things and talking about the things they do? It's just a real great assessment of whether or not someone's going to be successful.
And they would come to Voltage because you're giving them the methodology in order to try these different things so that when the first thing isn't a home run, it's giving them the information so that the fourth or fifth thing that they do really is the home run so they can be
Being
successful.
resilient is a component
Right.
of that. No doubt about it. Perseverance and resilience are synonymous, literally.
Yep.
Mm.
And then there's collaboration. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because, in virtually everything that we do, we're going to be doing it with other people. And some of those people are going to resist us. Some of those people are going to get in our way. Some of those people are going to disagree with us. They're going to argue with us. They're going to fight us. They're going to compete with us. Some of them we're just not going to like. But the way we naturally deal with that, with those different things, sometimes it has no effect. Sometimes it has a short-term effect, like rewards and punishments generally have a very, you can get somebody to do something once or twice through rewarding them or punishing them, but that doesn't generally have a long-term effect. Sometimes it makes the situation worse. And so there are like 50, 60 years worth of research in psychology and cognitive science and selling and business strategy that teach us, how to work with people through those different types of situations so that when people do oppose us or when we're proposing something, we do it in a way that taps into the things that they're most interested in. And so we can turn those situations that sometimes would result in divisiveness. First of all, by phrasing them differently, we can move to agreement. Second of all, we can turn differences of opinion into discussions where we could come up with something that's better than any one of us could have come up with on our own. So learning those different techniques, starting with, let's say, there's 5 different styles that you can have when you're confronting somebody, learning about different communication styles of communicating about a person's strengths rather than attacking their weaknesses. Open listening, some motivational interviewing is the one I happen to use, where you're asking questions from the point of view of curiosity and getting them to talk about the different things that they're really interested in so you can find some common ground. Or nonviolent communication, which is, how do you make a request for somebody in a way that doesn't trigger them into fight or flight? And so using all those different techniques, you can turn confrontational situations into collaborative, interpersonal opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. And I was just reading, this, just for everybody who wants to make sure they understand the definition. It's multiple people or entities working together for a mutual or shared goal. It's actually a Latin root word mean to labor with, right?
Mhm.
So at the end, if you're going to labor alone, good luck, because I've never really done anything successfully alone. And I think it looks like that to a lot of people at times because of the way we present or the way we act, or even the way social media makes it look like the way we do things. But quite frankly, I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have any success in business over the last 18 years if it wasn't for collaboration with others in the field of our business, whether it was a
Right.
joint venture, directly, partnerships, or otherwise. Even collaboration with my wife, who had to put up with me to get to this point, and all the troubles that allowed that to occur. That's resilience. I'm collaboration. She's resilience and perseverance, and as it stands. So I think those really define, I hope, the kind of people that are listening to this podcast right now.
And I think even if it doesn't define them right away, because nobody knows all of these different techniques, and so whether it's from me or whether it's from you or whether it's from other books, I think that as each of us go on our life journey, we have to continually upgrade our skills in all 3 of those areas.
Yeah.
And so, even if you're successful right now in your family, you're successful in your business, I would say you could still be happier. You could still be more successful if you learn more resourceful skills or more resilient skills or more
Always be learning.
collaboration skills.
Always be willing to accept, learn, and address the things you don't know, and humble yourself to the authority of others who do. Literally.
Yeah, right. Yep. And take that beginner's mindset. I think so. It's just kind of interesting, just a time from when I was in my 20s. So I learned to ski when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And I never skied professionally or competitively, but I could go down virtually any slope on, virtually any ski mountain. And so one day I was in the East Coast. I was at Killington, which is maybe the biggest mountain in the East. And I'd been down one of the more difficult mogul trails, and I get on the ski lift, and this older man, and of course, when you're in your 20s, 50 is an older man, right?
Yeah.
So this older man sits next to me and he turns to me and he says, well, how do you go down moguls? And I looked at him and I say, wow, he recognized how good I am. He wants to know all about going down on moguls. I'm going to tell him. And then all of a sudden it just dawned on me, you know something? Let me just first ask him why he asked.
Mm.
I don't know why that occurred, but it was like the beginner's
Good.
mindset. Okay. And I asked, and it turns out that he was coach of the Killington Mountain ski team. And he's going down.
You were going to
And he
lecture
had
the
some
wrong
pointers
person.
for me. Right. So I never got, luckily it was before I ever lectured him, because I started talking to him and asking him questions, and he started giving me advice. And in that share lift up, I learned more about skiing moguls than I had ever known in my entire lifetime. It was like so cool. And it's just like that, stopping yourself when you're sure and realizing, well, you know something, maybe I'm missing something. Let me ask a few questions first. That's one of the, that's a great skill to have.
And you may have missed an opportunity to be taught by one of the great.
I would have. Right. And he would have been laughing. Like, idiot.
Right.
He's telling
I love
me how to go down moguls.
Yeah. It's always great to have other people tell you they know more about what you do.
Yeah.
They never have a chance to express what you could do. That's always fun with people. We got to be careful with that. The humility is something that is not a word that gets tossed around in our culture much these days.
No.
It's one that should be used quite often, quite frequently, in humility of things. Well, this is great information, Mitch. Is there anything I didn't ask you yet that we haven't talked about you want to bring up?
Well, my website is mindshiftingwithmitch.com.
Yeah, mindshifting.
So if people want to know more about mindshifting, the courses are listed there. The current book is listed there. The second book, which will be the one on conflict and collaboration, which will be coming out in October, that will be listed there. I'm working on a course, because normally I do the courses over Zoom, but this will be a course that somebody could take, say, without me. But I'm working to train AI agents to coach people through these different techniques. So, one of the techniques is if you're sure that you can't do something, how do you get out of that mindset? So instead of, if it's in a course, I can ask the questions. Okay. But if I'm not there, I've trained this AI agent to ask the questions the same way that I would and try to interpret your answers to know if you're off or if you're on the right track and to get you back on track. So
that's awesome. I love that. The great use of technology and the resilience and resourcefulness of those kinds of tools. There you go. And of course, anybody who wants to collaborate with Mitch, go check out his website in the show notes, etc. It's been a great chat. I learned some things. Thank you for sharing some great information and wisdom with us today on the call.
Well, and thank you for, helping all these people achieve their dreams with their businesses.
Thank you very much. You too, sir. Yeah, it's been great, guys. As always, like, comment, share, and engage. Check out what's going on with Mitch. Check out the notes in the show notes. Catch us on another episode of the High Voltage Business Builder podcast if you'd like. And check out all the latest episodes and Substack as well. Free information, tutorials, and other stuff for you guys to go check out if the world of e-commerce makes any sense to you. And if you're stuck in a rut, if you don't feel like resources are near you and you want to figure out how to get closer to that, if you don't feel like resilience is something that is in your patience or your stack or mind, or if you just need to collaborate with somebody better and you feel alone or stuck, check out what Mitch is doing, guys. And the notes and everything below will be sent out to you guys as a part of this and as well as on the Substack. So have a great day. As always, remember, do something imperfect and something perfect will happen along the way. Till next time.